Canto 2, Chapter 7, which is entitled Scheduled Incarnations with Specific Functions. And today we have a special treat for you. We have Yamuna Blanch, an up-and-coming kirtanier who's going to lead the bhajan this morning before class, and she will be singing Jayadev Goswami's Dasavatara Stotra. So the way that we're going to do it is, as Yamuna goes through the verses of the bhajan, she will sing, she'll start with number 1 and then we repeat number 1. But then as she goes to number 2, 3, 4 and 5, we still repeat number 1, which will be presented on the screen in blue. So I hope you can all participate. Jai, take it away, Yamuna.
Kalaya
from Canto 2, Chapter 7, Scheduled Incarnations, and we are looking at text 20. So this is this text fits with the Brahma Samhita meter, the one that we normally use for Brahma Samhita. So, Chakram Chadikshva Vihatam Dashasu Swatejo Manvantareshu Manuvam Sadaro Vibharti Dushte Suraja Sudamam Vyadadat Svakirtim Satya Triprishta Ushatim Pratayam Charitrae Chakram Chadikshva Vihatam Dashasu Swatejo Manvantareshu Manuvam Sadaro Vibharti Dushte Suraja Sudamam Vyadadat Svakirtim Satya Triprishta Ushatim Pratayam Charitrae Somebody like to chant?
Chakram Chadikshva
Chakram Chadikshva Vihatam Dashasu Swatejo
Manvantareshu Manuvam Sadaro Vibharti
Manvantareshu Manuvam Sadaro Vibharti Dushte Suraja Sudamam Vyadadat Svakirtim Satya Triprishta Usatim Pratayam Charitrae
Chakram Chadikshva Vihatam Dashasu Swatejo
Chakram Chadikshva Vihatam Dashasu Swatejo Manvantareshu Manuvam Sadaro Vibharti Dushte Suraja Sudamam Vyadadat Svakirtim Satya Triprishta Usatim Pratayam Charitrae
Chakram Chadikshva Vihatam Dashasu Swatejo
Chakram Chadikshva Vihatam Dashasu Swatejo
Manvantareshu Manuvam Sadaro Vibharti
Manvantareshu Manuvam Sadaro Vibharti
Dushte Suraja Sudamam Vyadadat Svakirtim
Dushte Suraja Sudamam Vyadadat Svakirtim
Satya Triprishta Usatim Pratayam Charitrae
Satya Triprishta Usatim Pratayam Charitrae. Word for word. Chakram, the Sudarshan wheel of the Lord. Cha, as well as. Dikshu, in all directions. Avihatam, without being deterred. Dashasu, 10 sides. Svateja, personal strength. Manvantareshu, in different incarnations of Manu. Manuvam Sadaraha, as the descendant of the Manu dynasty. Vibharti, rules over. Dushtisu, unto the miscreants. Rajasu, upon the kings of that type. Dhammam, subjection. Vyadadhat, performed. Svakirtim, personal glories. Satya, in the Satyaloka planet. Triprishte, the three planetary systems. Ushatim, glories. Pratyayam, established. Charitrai, characteristics. Well, and we have the translations. Translation. As the incarnation of Manu, the Lord became the descendant of the Manu dynasty and ruled over the miscreant kingly order, subduing them by his powerful wheel weapon. Undeterred in all circumstances, his rule was characterized by his glorious fame, which spread over the three lokas and above them to the planetary system of Satyaloka, the topmost in the universe. And I don't think we need to do a repeat because you have it up there in front of you, so I'm going to read Srila Prabhupada's purport. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We have already discussed the incarnations of Manu in the first canto. In one day of Brahma, there are 14 Manus, changing one after another. In that way, there are 420 Manus in a month of Brahma and 5,040 Manus in 1 year of Brahma. Brahma lives for 100 years according to his calculation, and as such there are 504,000 Manus in the jurisdiction of one Brahma. There are innumerable Brahmas, and all of them live only during one breathing period of Mahavishnu. So we can just imagine how the incarnations of the Supreme Lord work all over the material worlds, which comprehend only 1/4 of the total energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Manvantara incarnation chastises all the miscreant rulers of different planets with as much power as that of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who punishes the miscreants with his will weapon. The Manvantara incarnations disseminate the transcendental glories of the Lord. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Om Agyati Miranda Syaginandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Nina Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I from my humble obeisances unto him. So just before we start, I should also mention that today is the disappearance day of Sri Murari Gupta. It is also the first day of the 4th month of chapter of Masya, and it is also Lakshmi Puja in our Vaishnava calendar. So, in his purport, Srila Prabhupada is addressing 3 main points. Right? The first one is just how phenomenal these Manu incarnations are in terms of their vast numbers. The second point is that the Manvantara incarnations, they chastise the demoniac rulers within the various planets. And the third point is that the Manvantara incarnations, through their extraordinary pastimes, they make known to the world the glories of the Supreme Lord. So the Manus are special incarnations. They take on the role of lawgivers for the benefit of the populations within the material universes. And each Manu lives for 306,720,000 years. In other words, 4,320,000 years times 71 Divya Yugas. Right? And the appearance of the Manus in successive order, it's all done by the supreme arrangement of the Supreme Lord. So as we can see on the screen here, Vaivashvata Manu, he is our current Manu, right? So he is the 7th Manu out of the 14 Manus that appear in one day of Lord Brahma. And Lord Vamanadev, Krishna's dwarf incarnation, is our current Manvantara avatar. Right, so the word Manvantara means the era or the lifespan of Manu. And so the Manvantara incarnations, they are special incarnations that appear within the era of a specific Manu. Right, so Her Grace Pranada Devi Dasi has explained this phenomenon as follows. Manvantara means the lifespan of Manu, and these Manvantara incarnations appear simultaneously with the Manus and change as the Manus change. Right, so Lord Vamanadev, he is of course the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, who has come in this particular Manvantara to perform his transcendental pastimes and to establish order within our universe. Right, so Lord Vamana appeared in the Treta Yuga within our current Divi Yuga cycle. So Prabhupada explains a little further. He says that there are different manifestations of the Lord, and he has two primary expansions. So ordinary living entities, such as us, we are called Vibhinamsa expansions, right? So these are the Jiva Tattva personalities, and then there are the direct and the unlimited expansions of Krishna, such as Lord Vamanadev, and they are called Svamsa. Svamsa expansions. So Svamsa personalities, they are direct expansions of Krishna, and such as Lord Vamanadev, Lord Kurma, Lord Nrsingadev, Lord Matsya, etc. And all the Vishnu Tattva, all these Vishnu Tattva personalities, they are equally powerful. I'd say that Prabhupada said they all have the full potency of Krishna. But the Manus, they are empowered Jiva Tattva living entities, and they are considered, they are partial incarnations of Krishna. Excuse me. But although they are empowered, they're not actually what we refer to as our Shaktivesha avatars, right, such as Prithu Maharaj and Narada Muni, but rather they are temporarily empowered by Krishna to perform specific important functions within the material universes, and those functions are primarily to establish law and order, to determine moral codes and establish religious principles, and they also participate in Krishna's pastimes, which are of course intended to demonstrate and establish the position of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So now Prabhupada also comments that the Manus, they are all perfect kings, right? And so they are what we call Raja Rishis, they are saintly kings. And the 14 Manus who appear within one day of Lord Brahma, they include, right, first one, Svayambhuva Manu. So the word Svayam means original. So Svayambhuva Manu is the first Manu in one day of Lord Brahma. And he is also the son of Lord Brahma, and he also happens to be the grandfather of Dhruva Maharaj. Then we have Svaruchisa Manu, then Uttama Manu, Tamasa Manu, Raivata Manu, Chakshusa Manu, and then Vaivasvata Manu. So that's the one that we are currently up to at the moment. Then we have Savarani, Daksha Savarani, Brahma Savarani, Dharma Savarani, Rudra Savarani, Deva Savarani, and Indra Savarani. Right, so they're the 14 Manus. And the 14 Manvantara incarnations, who are also sometimes referred to as Vaibhav avatars, who appear within each Manu era. Right, so they include Yagya, Vibhu, Satyasena, Hari, Vaikuntha, Ajita, Vamana. Right, so again that's number 7, Vamanadev. Then we have Sarvabhauma, Rishabh, Vishvakshena, Dharmashetu, Sudama, Yogeshvara, and Brihadbhanu. Right, and of these 4, Yagya, the first one, and Lord Vamanadev, they are also counted amongst Krishna's Leela avatars. So the Manus, throughout their own lifetimes, in other words, within their own Manvantaras, they are teaching the universal population's Dharma, right? They are teaching religious principles through their various activities. They also produce literatures that outlines codes of proper behavior. They suppress demoniac elements within society at large, and that suppression is of course aided by and facilitated by Krishna himself. So the Manus, they are serving Krishna, they're serving Lord Vishnu and carrying out his orders. Certainly they set an example of perfect behavior as saintly kings. they also set an example of being dedicated devotees of the Supreme Lord. And they also set an example of being super excellent administrators of affairs within the material universes. And of course also, establishing moral and ethical standards that everyone should ideally follow. Right? So through their exemplary behavior, inevitably they become famous, right? They become distinguished because of their ability to act in accordance with the desires of the Supreme Lord and to carry out his desires, right? And also, of course, they are acting in accordance with the desires of other elevated personalities, such as the Brahmanas, the saints, the demigods, and so forth. And all of this is being orchestrated by Krishna so that the populations within the material universes, they will have some proper guidance and some proper authority. Now, we read earlier on the screen, Prabhupada is saying that in the life of each Manu, there are particular incidences that occur. And these incidences, they are of course directly related to the establishment of religious principles and also to the protection of the devotees of the Lord. Right, for example, we see here on the screen, right, so this is Krishna appearing as Lord Matsya, pulling a boat with Vaibhastata Manu in the boat, and also in the boat we have the 7 great sages. Also in the boat there are other living beings, and so Lord Matsya is pulling them through the deluge, through the waters, in order to save them, right? So because at the end of the last Manvantara, so that was the Chakshusa Manvantara, there was a devastation. And it is said that after this pastime, so now Vaibhashvata Manu, he worships Lord Matsya, he's worshipping Lord Krishna in pure devotional service, and that is in the land of Ramyakavarsha, where he resides. So Ramyakavarsha is actually one of the divisions of Jambudvip. Right, so Jambudvip is actually this earth planet, but it is described as Jambudvip. Right? Dvip, I think, means island, and Jambu is a type of tree. But Jambudvip is how the Vedas present, we could say, a cosmographical presentation of the earth planet. It's a lot more elaborate and detailed than what our current scientists, how they will describe our earth planet. Anyway, so by appearing in this wonderful fish form of Lord Matsya, as well as under other wonderful forms such as Lord Kurma in the form of a tortoise, Lord Varaha in the form of a boar, Krishna is establishing that he is beyond all mundane bodily, or all mundane conceptions of bodily forms. Right? Forms such as a fish, which would ordinarily be considered as quite a low form of life or a low species. Right? He is also establishing that he is not controlled by any material elements, but rather that he is the source of all material elements, and that he's totally in control of all of them. Right? For example, like no one else can take the form of a fish that is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam as being 8 million miles long. Right? This is the size of Lord Matsya. So as Lord Matsya, Krishna is just sort of splashing around in the waters of devastation and enjoying his pastimes. And we have other wonderful pastimes, right? Such as Krishna, just as a little boy, he's lifting Govardhan Hill on his little finger and holding it up there for 7 days and 7 nights while there's all these torrential rains and floods and everything. No one else can do that, right? Also, as Lord Varahadev, right? Krishna is picking up the earth planet on his snout. Right, as the boar incarnation. So he's picking up the earth planet on his snout, on his tusks, and is lifting it out of the Garbhodaka ocean, after the earth was flung down there by Hiranyaksha. So again, these are extraordinary pastimes that no one else can actually perform, and so that he's establishing, his position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the Manus, they participate in some of these extraordinary pastimes of Krishna and his various svamsa expansions. So now, in terms of dissemination of transcendental knowledge, right, transmission of knowledge to the populations within the material universes. We have this very famous shloka in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 1. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha imam vivasvate yogam proktavan nahamavyayam vivasvan manavepraha manurikshvakave bravit. So Krishna is saying that he taught the science of Bhakti Yoga to the sun god Vivasvan. So that was in Treta Yuga. And Vivasvan taught it in turn to his son Vaivashvata. So Vaivashvata Manu is the son of the sun of the sun god Vivasvan. And then Vaivashvata Manu taught it to his son Ikshvaku Maharaj. So Ikshvaku Maharaj is described as the original king of this earth planet. He is also the forefather of the Raghu dynasty, in which Lord Ramachandra later appeared. So the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, they have existed within human society from the time of Ikshvaku Maharaj in Treta Yuga, and our current Vaivasvata Manu, right, he has been instrumental in both receiving and passing on this knowledge of Bhakti Yoga for the benefit of others. But then, of course, as we know, due to demoniac disturbances, this chain of knowledge was eventually lost, and then Krishna came and spoke it again to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So that was the end of the Dwapara Yuga. And then, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and our other acharyas, we ourselves now have the benefit of this knowledge. So, the passing down of this knowledge, right, the science of devotional service for the Supreme Lord, as well as our entire Hare Krishna movement, they are intended for the well-being not only of the human race, but actually for the well-being of all living beings. Right, so Prabhupada has commented that as far as Vedic religion is concerned, right, Sanatana Dharma, the eternal religion, this is for all living beings, not just for the humans, not just for the Brahmanas, not just for those who are born in India. And these empowered incarnations such as the Manus, right, who participate in the dissemination of transcendental knowledge, they are striving to establish religious principles that are going to benefit all living beings, not just those who are in some privileged situation. Right. And this is actually the qualification or the quality of personalities such as the Manus, whom Krishna trusts and thereby appoints to these special administrative positions. So in their concern for the materially embodied jivas, the Manus, they are producing literatures, and of course the one that we hear of most often is the Manu Samhita. So the Manu Samhita is known as the law book for humankind. It contains many rules, regulations, descriptions of behavioral codes, etc. And many of these guidelines, they address proper social behavior, such as appropriate personal interaction, right, between human beings. They also address religious duties, social duties, proper standards of communication, etc., all intended to create, a very smooth running and a properly situated society. And of course, ideally, our earthly rulers, right, even those today, such as our kings and government heads, such as prime ministers and presidents, ideally they should adhere to the guidelines that are recommended in authorized law books, such as the Manu Samhita, right, in order to guide, to lead, to protect, and to inspire the citizens, and of course, most importantly, to try and lead them towards God consciousness. However, as Srila Prabhupada has discussed, today most people within society at large, they do not take it so seriously to adhere to Dharma, to follow the teachings of Dharma. And furthermore, due to the effects of Kali Yuga, our intellects, or rather the intellects of all materially embodied beings, we're not actually able to absorb so much, because of the effects of the material energy and the characteristics of this particular yuga. So, consequently, if we were to try to adhere to all the prescriptions that are given in the Manasamhita, we would be totally overcome by our own circumstances. We couldn't possibly follow all of the procedures and the ritualistic practices that are recommended for an ideal human society, right? It would simply be too much for us. And the irony of this is, of course, that in Kali Yuga, now more than ever, we really do need societies to function properly, to adhere to proper standards of moral and religious behavior. But as we know, there is a critical dearth of genuine brahmanas to guide society at present. And on top of that, a lot of religious, well, I would say most religious institutions, they are also failing their people, their congregations, because they are not, much of the time, they are not setting proper examples of moral behaviors. So often we hear in the news how the heads of various religious institutions are misbehaving, to the point where they have to be punished by the law and so forth. So, in this most needy age, there is a lack of proper support to guide human society within the earthly governments in terms of them implementing authorized religious teachings. Therefore, right, Srila Prabhupada and our previous acharyas, right, by their causeless mercy, they have kindly given us our devotional program, right, whereby with a minimal effort, and it really is a minimal effort, we can live and act in a manner that will be pleasing to the Supreme Lord and to our acharyas without having to, painstakingly address all the multitudes of regulations and rituals that are prescribed in the Manasamhita, right? And this is the glory of our Hare Krishna movement, that simply by engaging in Krishna conscious activities and living a simple Krishna conscious lifestyle, and if we do it sincerely, then we automatically lose our taste for violating moral and religious behavioral standards. As we progressively come to the platform of Krishna consciousness, we also learn how to interact properly with other species of life, right? So that they can also remain protected from being violated and corrupted by the negative forces within the material energy. And if we really, if we take it one step further, then we can also learn how to interact with other species of life so that we can somehow also see so that they get some spiritual benefit, from this movement of ours. So, in this way, the process that has been established by Srila Prabhupada and the other acharyas, it automatically satisfies the moral and religious codes that are contained within texts such as the Manasamhita. And for this reason, Srila Prabhupada has actually advised us as devotees who are developing our Krishna consciousness that it's best if we don't delve into the Manasamhita, right? It would just be too much for us. But the Manas, they are definitely extraordinary personalities. They are appointed by Krishna to carry out some important work for him. And they do play important roles in terms of establishing laws and morals for the benefit of all materially embodied jivas. So I think that's all that I have to comment on this particular verse today. I was wondering if anyone has any question or any comment, something that perhaps that they would like to add or ask in relation to this topic. Oh, yes, we have one from Raja. Yeah.
I was just wondering, you mentioned how Vaishravataman, Vaishravataman,
Yes, sorry.
he appeared, or in his time, Matsya Avatar appeared.
Yes.
Yeah?
Lord Matsya appeared at the end of the last Manvantara. That was at the end of the Chakshusa Manvantara. Yeah, number 6. Yeah, that was the deluge. Yeah, but Lord Matsya has also appeared before, like he came in the first Manvantara. That was Swayambhuva Manvantara era. And I found a very interesting little purport by Srila Prabhupada. I'm going to flick through to that. Let's see. I don't know if you can see on the screen. Maybe somebody... Would you like to read this out, Braja? Can you see it? You can read it in the microphone, please. Yeah.
According to Sripad Sridhar Swami, the original commentator of the Bhagavatam, there is not always a devastation after the change of every man. And yet, this inundation after the period of Chaksusamana took place in order to show some wonders to Satyavrata. But Sri Jiva Goswami has given definite proofs from authoritative scriptures like Vishnu Dharmottara, Markandeya Purana, Harivamsa, etc., that there is always a devastation after the end of each and every man. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti has also supported Srila Jiva Goswami, and he, Sri Chakravarti, has also quoted from Bhagavatamrita about this inundation after each man. Apart from this, the Lord, in order to show special favor to Satyavrata, the devotee of the Lord, in this particular period, incarnated himself.
So this is very interesting. You know, this is that Srila Prabhupada is saying here that there is evidence that there is actually a devastation after the end of each Manu. Yeah, I'm not an expert on this particular topic. You know, maybe somebody else would like to comment on this particular point. Yeah.
No, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
The only thing I would like to ask, where exactly, in which planetary system this takes place? On Earth or?
The devastation.
Yeah, this deluge.
The deluge. My understanding is that deluge is for the entire universe. Yeah, this entire universe. I haven't been led to believe anything else.
So is that at the end of one day of Brahma or just in the middle?
Well, according to this, it's that, you know, this particular purport, it's at the end of each Manvantara, right? So we read at the start of the class how there are 14 Manus in one day of Lord Brahma. Yeah.
So is it the middle of the day of Brahma?
Yes, I suppose it would be.
And he's okay there in Satyaloka, not affected by, it's just for the lower planetary systems?
Yeah, gosh, well now we're getting really technical. I think I shouldn't comment beyond, you know, what I've read in Prabhupada's purports, but yeah, these are very interesting topics, and would anyone else like to comment on the details of this? No? Yeah.
And, okay, just another thing.
Yeah.
Because I see many similarities between Noah, you know?
Oh, Noah, yes, the biblical Noah, yes.
And there's this pastime,
yes.
event of. So do you know?
Well, I have read, you know, just in various posts, you know, people who comment on the various religious scriptures of the world, and yes, there has been more, you know, several reports drawing attention to the similarities between the biblical pastime of Noah's Ark, where Noah was asked to build a boat and bring all the living beings on because there was going to be a flood, and actually, you know, in the boat that Lord Matsya is pulling, it is also said that aboard that boat were living beings. I think it said the seeds of the living beings, but certainly, you know, other living beings that were meant to be saved from the devastation. And I have also heard there is another major religious scripture in the world that also reports, you know, a similar story where there is a devastation and floods, and you know, the living beings are saved in a boat. So how these fit together, you know, in terms of cosmological timing, or you know, whether they overlap, I cannot comment beyond that. Yeah, I can't comment beyond that. Sorry.
So basically, the deluge has already happened, and we are after the deluge.
Yeah, well, we're in the 7th Manvantara era now. Yeah. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. I think Vaishnavi has a question. Yeah.
Thank you for the class. You mentioned how we have the process and it's very simple and teaches us how to also follow the etiquette and how to also be compassionate, not only to human beings but to all species. My question is, how do we understand that this compassion needs to be applied and understanding other people's perspective and also compassion to animals, but where do we draw the line? Is it when it affects our spiritual practice? Because sometimes it can become sentimental based on the senses and the mind rather than the higher, broader spiritual vision.
Okay, if I've understood your question properly, you're asking about our duty. It's actually a duty to show compassion upon living beings, but sometimes that may interfere with our own program. Is that?
It can become sentimental.
It can become sentimental, right.
As Bharat Maharaj, he became attached to the deer
Right.
to the point of his spiritual being shaped in that life.
Yeah. So, what I can say in response to that is that, whenever we make judgments and decisions on the material platform, then something is bound to come undone in some way, right? The material equation is you win and I lose, or, somehow or other something is going to go wrong or come undone. But if we try and act from the spiritual platform, then actually everyone benefits. So say in the example of somebody becoming like finding, say, an animal that is half dead or something, and wanting to show compassion, then the first consideration should be, what can I do for this living being for his spiritual life, right? So, and then, usually from that, the more practical aspect will fall into place, if we reverse that, and try to respond to somebody who's suffering, if we approach it from the mundane perspective and sort of forget the spiritual aspect of it, then certainly we can find ourselves running around in circles and things becoming very impractical for ourselves, possibly as well as for that living being as well. So I don't know if I'm addressing your question, but it's actually a good question, and it has very broad implications. But I think that's sort of the best that I can respond to that, is to just think about what others are going to need spiritually, and if we prioritize that, then the somewhat awkward material helping them, because it's always a bit awkward in the material realm in terms of time we can give them, or whatever, that tends to fall into place a lot easier. Yeah. Okay, well, look, thank you all very much for coming this morning. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and especially Yamuna's wonderful rendition of Jayadev Goswami's Dasavatara Stotra. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.